Good morning. It's been a while since I've been here with you, and I thought I would take a short break, but also give you a short break, and I didn't want to repeat myself too much. But in the last few days, I've had many dialogues with people about the two open questions in science, the two most important open questions in science. If you go on the internet and you check out Science magazine, I think the issue was 2008, but it doesn't matter. And there are about 125 open questions in science. And the number one open question in science is, what is the universe made of? And number two open question in science is, what's the biological basis of consciousness? And I think these questions in science remain open because perhaps the underlying premise on which these questions are based is wrong. What is the universe made of? Well, at this moment, science is unable to answer the question because 70% of the universe is mysterious dark energy, which is expanding the space between galaxies faster than the speed of light, even as we speak. Galaxies are crossing the cosmic horizon, which is about 47 to 48 billion years away from where we are. And that leaves 30% of the universe remaining, and of that 26% is dark matter, which is responsible for most of the gravity in a galaxy, because it's basically that which bends space-time, serves as the scaffolding of a galaxy, and makes the world go round and the planets revolve and rotate, holds everything in place. Gravity does that. The curvature of space-time does that. And most of it is not done by regular matter, but by this mysterious entity called dark matter. It's so called because it's invisible. It's not made up of atoms. There are theoretical particles called WIMPs, weakly interacting massive particles that are supposed to be responsible for this dark matter. In any case, both dark energy and dark matter are mathematical constructs that help balance or help us to understand the standard model of physics. But nobody knows what these invisible entities are. They could just be mathematical constructs. So that leaves only 4% of the universe, which is atomic, of which 99.99% is invisible interstellar dust, supposedly hydrogen and helium, but we can't see it. The visible universe, with 2 trillion galaxies as of now, 700 sextillion stars, and uncountable trillions of planets, is 0.01% of the universe. I just read, by the way, that there could be 60 billion habitable planets in our own Milky Way galaxy. So all of that is 0.01% of the universe. And when we start looking at this atomic universe, we see that it's made up of subatomic particles, which have a dual nature. As particles, they have units of mass and energy, but as waves, they are distributed over the entire universe and exist only as probabilities for space-time events that we call particles. In other words, if we were to summarize the whole thing, it would be safe to say that the universe is made from nothing. And as I've said before, what is the nature of this nothingness? Is it just an empty void, or could it be the womb of creation? Where does everything go after it disappears, and where does everything come from before it is manifest? Perhaps this nothingness is not an empty void, but it is, as I said, the place where nature goes to create everything from stars to galaxies to human bodies to minds to thoughts, to every experience that we have. So the nature of nothingness, of course, is also the nature of consciousness. Consciousness has no form, it has no color, it has no shape, it has no sound, and it can't be seen, it's invisible. Consciousness is also formless, and being formless, it has no existence in space and time, and having no existence in space and time, it is eternal. So both consciousness and the universe in their fundamental state exists as nothingness. So now let's come to what is called the hard problem of consciousness. Let us come to what is called the hard problem of consciousness. The hard problem of consciousness is that we cannot explain how experience happens in the brain or through the brain or by the brain. We cannot explain how atoms and molecules or how electrochemical activity in disparate parts of the brain coming together produces that which we call experience. Any experience. A thought, an image, a sensation, a feeling, a perception. We cannot explain that through a physicalist ontology. By physicalist ontology, I mean if we presume that the fundamental nature of the universe is physical, is made up of matter, then it is not possible to explain any experience. If the brain produces consciousness, then how does it do that? How does the brain produce experience? Any experience, thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, imagination, intuition, creativity, insight, introspection, higher consciousness, longing, love, fear, compassion, empathy, joy, equanimity, guilt, shame, mistrust, depression, anxiety, anger, hostility. How does the brain produce this? And we can't explain it. All we can explain are easy problems, which means we can see the biological and neural correlates of experience in the brain and in the body. Actually, the brain is not just in your skull. You have an autonomic nervous system which extends into your visceral organs, and that's part of the brain. And now we know that the gut has its own brain, and that the microbiome produces more serotonin than your neurons. And of course, even the heart has networks that look neural, and so the brain is not just here, maybe the whole body is the brain. But nevertheless, how does that explain experience? And the answer is no one knows. And that's why it's called the hard problem. So now, let's solve it. Because I don't think there is a hard problem. I think just the question is based on the wrong assumption. And the wrong assumption is that the essential nature of the world is that it's physical and made of matter. So let me say right off the bat that matter is not made out of matter, as the late physicist Hans-Peter Dürr used to say. Matter is not made of matter. So let me say to you something that annoys scientists and physicists in particular. Matter is a metaphysical idea, and actually it's a good human construct for doing science, making gadgets and creating technology. But fundamentally, matter does not exist. Matter is a human construct or a metaphysical idea, and is the interpretation of perceptual activity. So perceptual activity is color, is shape, is smell, is taste, is sound. That's what perceptual activity is. Consciousness modifies itself as perceptual activity. Consciousness creates the sound and hears the sound. Consciousness modifies itself as a quality of awareness that we call color. And by the way, color, shape, and form are the same thing. So consciousness modifies itself as a particular quality of consciousness that we call color, shape, and form, or as a particular quality of consciousness that we call sound, or taste, or smell. And then human consciousness interprets that as matter, and even as other constructs. This book is made of matter, but it's also a book. The word book is a human construct, a human idea, a human conception for this shape, this color, this form, this taste, this smell, and this sound. All produced by consciousness modifying itself into qualities of consciousness, or qualia, and then interpreting in human consciousness those qualia as first matter and then a book. But all there is consciousness modifying itself as perceptual experience and then interpreting it in consciousness as a book, or as a hand, or as a face, or as these spectacles, or as that statue behind me. But all you're experiencing right now is color, shape, form, and sound on your screen. The rest is a story. So humans have told stories ever since they invented language and words. Words are magical. Words are the magical property of those who know how to use them. But words are symbols of experience. Before you can call anything an object, it is an experience. And as raw experience, all it is perceptual activity, which is consciousness modifying itself as that perceptual activity. Everything after that is a human construct. Matter, space, time, force fields, gluons, protons, electrons, quarks, Higgs bosons, gravity, space-time. These are human constructs, words, concepts for modes of knowing and experience in human consciousness. But by inventing language, humans basically created the human universe and also created ideas like mind, body, and universe. In the deeper reality, there is no mind, there is no body, and there is no universe. There's only consciousness modifying itself as experience and then interpreting that experience as space, time, energy, information, matter, and then even going further down the rabbit hole, creating categories of matter like trees and animals and humans and bodies and minds and stars and galaxies and force fields and atoms and all of that. These are human constructs. But ultimately, if you go deep down the rabbit hole, you'll see there is only consciousness, and that's all there is. There is only consciousness experiencing itself as mind, body, space-time, energy, information, matter, subatomic particles, and galaxies. Because as we look at all these things we describe through words, we see that before we can name these things, they are just experiences. And as experiences, they are modifications of consciousness that we call perceptual activity. And then the rest is interpretation, and moreover, a human interpretation in human consciousness. But that human consciousness is part of a bigger consciousness which is infinite, which is also the various varieties of consciousness that we call other species. So insects and birds and trees and giraffes and elephants and dolphins and whales are species of consciousness having different experiences, and we cannot intimately know their experiences because we are a different species of consciousness. But the reservoir of consciousness from where all these streams of consciousness emanate is infinite. And of course, infinity cannot be conceptualized. It can only be mathematically expressed by a symbol. So right now, one of the major sciences and disciplines in the world is something called semiotics. Semiotics is the science of symbols. And of course, we use linguistic symbols. In other words, we use language. But there are other symbols, mathematical symbols, and they bypass our ability to, they bypass our inability to conceptualize or imagine infinity. In fact, mathematically you can express infinite number of infinities, which is why the latest theories say that there might be infinite universes. String theories, M theory, and eternal inflation all say that there might be 10 to the power of 500 universes. It's unimaginable. And yet it is mathematically expressible. And mathematics is the basis of quantum mechanics, and quantum mechanics is the basis of physics. and physics is the basis of chemistry, and chemistry is the basis of organic chemistry, and organic chemistry is the basis of biology, and biology is what apparently makes existence possible. But as you can see, as by deconstructing experience, we can see that these are all human concepts. This book is not only a human creation, I hope you'll read it. It's not only a human creation, it's a human concept. And when you open the book, all you see is squiggles. But these squiggles represent ideas, and we can share these ideas in what we call cognitive space. And that cognitive space where we share these ideas in language or symbols is a human cognitive space. It's not a dolphin cognitive space or the cognitive space of an insect with multiple eyes. So you see, infinite consciousness localizes itself as species of experience in species of consciousness that we call biological organisms, all human constructs. All human constructs. A giraffe doesn't know it's called a giraffe, nor does an insect with multiple eyes knows that it is part of human taxonomy. So taxonomy of species, taxonomy such as the periodic table, are maps that basically divide an infinite wholeness into modes of knowing and experience mapped out as the periodic table and the taxonomy of species, a human creation. That's why when I wrote this book, I called it You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self and Why It Matters, because I don't mean this literally, I mean this totally literally. You as awareness are right now modifying yourself into experience. The perceptual experience you call matter, and then the interpretation of that experience you call mind. But mind, matter, body, universe are our own creation. When we fully understand this, then you'll also understand that both birth and death are human constructs. There's no such thing as birth and death. All there is the fluctuation of awareness modifying itself as experience, and that's happening eternally in what we call the lucid now. So I hope I have made this clear. Who am I? I am awareness. When am I? I am now. Where am I? Here. Now, here, awareness are synonymous. Now is not a moment in time, but the timeless being that is having a lucid dream that we call waking reality. So I will end this conversation today, one-way conversation, although I'm getting your feedback, and thank you very much, by quoting Wittgenstein again, the great German philosopher who said, "We are asleep, our life is a dream, but once in a while we wake up enough to know that we are dreaming." The Buddha said the same thing when he said, "This lifetime of ours is transient as autumn clouds. To watch the birth and death of beings is like looking at the movements of a dance. A lifetime is like a flash of lightning in the sky, rushing by like a torrent down a steep mountain." And that which he called nirvana is waking up. Waking up to what? Waking up to the awareness that is projecting itself as the lucid dream in a vivid now. What is death? Death is the cessation of a particular qualia program, and it's an interpretation by human consciousness of the cessation of the qualia program, which begins with that which we call birth. But actually qualia are generated instantly, eternally, in that which we call now, and they instantly disappear in that which we call now. So behind me you might see a statue of Shiva. I'm going to try and show it to you right now. Shiva is the mythical, archetypal symbol of consciousness that creates, maintains, destroys eternally in the vivid now. The creator of the universe, the sustainer of the universe, the destroyer of the universe. But what do we mean by that? We just mean consciousness modulating itself eternally into that which we call perceptual and cognitive experience. There is no hard problem of consciousness. If consciousness is the ontological primitive, the fundamental ground of all experience, and that which we call objects, bodies, are just interpretations of the modulations of the self, then the self of the individual is also the self of the universe. Thank you very much. And thank you for your patience. This is not easy stuff, but once you get it, then all problems, all human problems that come from the illusion of matter and the separate self disappear, including the fear of death, which is the primal reason why humans invented the concept of God and religion. God also is a construct, the way we usually think of God. In reality, there's just consciousness. Om Namo Shivaya. Thank you. Be well.